Walk down the canned food aisle at the supermarket right now. These 12 canned foods could become nearly priceless in August 2026. But for now, the cans are still fully stocked, the prices are still clearly displayed, and there are no crowds fighting over them. Look closer, and you'll notice small changes. Store brands are no longer fully stocked. Multi-packs are showing up less often. Larger cans are gradually being replaced by smaller ones, while prices rise by a few dozen cents each time. By August, hot weather, storms, power outages, and rising household bills will make food that doesn't need refrigeration even more important. Priceless doesn't mean these foods will disappear. It means their practical value could far exceed the number on the label when families truly need them. This is not a call to panic buy. Just buy reasonable amounts of the foods your family already uses. And the number one item requires almost nothing more than opening the lid. 12. Canned pumpkin. The food trapped in a single holiday season. For most of the year, millions of cans of pumpkin sit on store shelves as if they have no purpose until November. Shoppers see them and immediately think of Thanksgiving, pumpkin pie, cinnamon, and desserts that only appear for a few weeks each year. But canned pumpkin is not a holiday food. It is one of the cheapest ingredients a pantry can have for adding thickness, moisture, and nutritional value. Imagine it's almost the end of the week. All that's left in the kitchen is a little oatmeal, a pot of soup that's slightly too thin, and a few baking ingredients. One can of pumpkin won't turn them into 3 complete meals on its own, but it can help make all 3 dishes more filling, softer, and easier to eat. One portion can be stirred into morning oatmeal to give it a thicker texture and a mild sweetness. Another portion can go into vegetable soup, bean soup, or stew to thicken the broth without using too much cream or milk. The rest can be mixed into pancakes, muffins, or bread to hold in moisture and keep baked goods from becoming too dry. Even just a few small spoonfuls can be added to chili. When used in moderation, it won't make the dish taste like pumpkin pie. It simply makes the sauce thicker, milder, and gives it the feeling that it has been cooking longer. Pumpkin also provides fiber and vitamin A. In a pantry that relies heavily on rice, pasta, beans, and canned meat, it adds the things that are often missing first: color, a soft texture, and a source of fiber that is easy to work into a meal. This is especially useful for older adults or anyone who gets tired of constantly eating dry, heavy foods. Its value becomes even clearer in August. Instead of cutting open a large pumpkin, removing the skin and seeds, and running the oven for hours in hot weather, you can simply open the can and use it right away. August also comes just before demand for fall baking begins to rise. Stores may not run out of pumpkin, but low-priced store brands or familiar sizes may not be restocked consistently before seasonal sections begin expanding. Pumpkin also faces the same pressures as other canned foods. The costs of farming, processing, metal cans, and transportation are all reflected in the retail price. For a product that only sells strongly during part of the year, slower selling or low-margin options are often not prioritized for keeping shelves fully stocked year-round. There is one detail to check before buying. The type that works for oatmeal, soup, and savory dishes should say 100% pure pumpkin or pumpkin puree. Don't confuse it with pumpkin pie filling, because that type usually already has sugar and spices added. As long as it remains unopened and the can is intact, pumpkin can be kept in a cool, dry pantry. Once opened, transfer what is left to an airtight container and refrigerate it. One can easily be divided among several dishes instead of being used up in one large recipe. Don't let the image of pumpkin pie make you overlook something that can do the work of a vegetable, a thickener, and a baking ingredient all in the same can. 11. Evaporated milk. The backup refrigerator inside a can. If your refrigerator stopped working tonight, which source of milk in your home would still be usable tomorrow morning? The coffee is still there. The oatmeal is still there. The ingredients for making breakfast are still in the pantry. But the carton of fresh milk in the refrigerator has started to warm up, and you're no longer sure whether it's safe to use. That's when a can of evaporated milk stops looking like a forgotten baking ingredient. It becomes the only source of milk in the house that still doesn't depend on refrigeration. Evaporated milk is milk that has had some of its water removed, then been processed and canned. As long as the can remains unopened and intact, it can be stored at room temperature. This is a major advantage for people who don't shop often, people who live alone, older adults, or families that usually don't finish a carton of fresh milk before it goes bad. But there is one important limit. The advantage of not needing refrigeration only exists before the can is opened. Once opened, evaporated milk becomes a perishable dairy product and must be kept refrigerated. If the power still hasn't come back on, choose a small can and only open it when you can finish it in one meal. Don't open a large can and keep the leftovers at room temperature for the next day. In the kitchen, this product can do many jobs. A small amount makes coffee or tea creamier. It can be added to mashed potatoes, soups, and sauces to create a fuller texture without needing heavy cream. In many baking recipes, it can also replace the milk called for. When you need to use it as thinner milk, mix it with safe drinking water according to the directions on the label. The ratio can vary between products, so don't assume every can should be mixed the same way. Evaporated milk usually provides protein and calcium, but the amount of fat depends on the type you buy. The shelf may have whole, low-fat, or fat-free versions. If the goal is to add calories and richness to a dish, read the label instead of assuming every can is the same. Can size also matters. People who live alone should prioritize smaller cans to avoid creating leftovers. A larger family may be able to use a large can in one meal and get a better unit price. During a power outage, the best size is not necessarily the cheapest size, but the size you can finish immediately after opening. There is one very common mix-up to avoid. Evaporated milk is unsweetened, concentrated milk. It is completely different from sweetened condensed milk. The sweetened milk commonly used in desserts and sweet drinks. Pouring the sweetened kind into soup, mashed potatoes, or sauce will turn a useful household trick into a mistake that is very difficult to fix. The advantage of this product becomes even clearer in August. High temperatures mean any power outage quickly puts pressure on food in the refrigerator. An unopened can of evaporated milk cannot replace the entire refrigerator, but it ensures that the family still has a source of milk for coffee, oatmeal, or a simple recipe. It doesn't completely replace fresh milk. But on the morning after an overnight power outage, when the carton in the refrigerator can no longer be trusted, an unopened can of evaporated milk may become the only source of milk in the house still waiting for you to use. 10. Canned fruit. When the body needs something, it can accept. After several days of eating stored food, the kitchen still hasn't run out of supplies. There is still rice. There are still beans. There is still enough pasta, soup, and canned meat to make many more meals. No one is actually going hungry. But when everyone sits down in front of a plate with nearly the same colors and flavors as yesterday, silence begins to set in. The problem is no longer a lack of food. The problem is that no one wants to eat any more of it. That's when canned fruit shows a very different kind of value. It isn't added to a pantry only for extra vitamins. It brings sweetness, color, softness, and contrast to meals that are becoming increasingly salty, dry, and heavy. A can of peaches, pears, pineapple, mandarin oranges, or fruit cocktail can be opened and eaten immediately. No peeling, cutting, or cooking required. It can be eaten cold when the refrigerator is still working, or served at room temperature when there is no power. This is especially useful when someone is tired, sick, or has lost their appetite. For many young children and older adults, a few pieces of soft peach or pear may be easier to chew and accept than a serving of tough meat or a thick bowl of beans. It isn't the right choice for every swallowing problem, but for many people, this may be one of the few foods they are still willing to eat. Fruit can be eaten on its own, added in small amounts to breakfast, or placed next to a savory dish. The sweetness of pears, the tartness of pineapple, or the bright orange color of mandarins can make an entirely brown and beige meal feel more pleasant. After several days of eating the same foods repeatedly, that small change can sometimes matter more than an elaborate recipe. This value becomes even clearer in August. In hot weather, fresh peaches, pears, or pineapple can ripen and spoil before a family has time to finish them. Unopened canned fruit doesn't need refrigeration, doesn't depend on ripeness, and doesn't require turning on the stove in a house that is already hot. It doesn't completely replace fresh fruit, but it helps make having fruit with a meal less dependent on what is about to spoil in the refrigerator. When buying, look closely at the liquid listed on the label. Fruit packed in water or juice is usually more suitable for families that want to limit added sugar. Fruit packed in syrup may be sweeter and contain more calories, but that liquid should not be confused with pure fruit juice. If the product is packed in water or juice, the liquid can be used to moisten oatmeal or added to a simple dessert instead of being poured out. However, it is not a replacement source for the family's drinking water. Large cans often have a lower unit price, but they only truly save money when the family finishes them. Once opened, the remaining fruit must be transferred to an airtight container and refrigerated. If the power is out, only one person is eating, or appetites are declining, small cans or single-serving cups can reduce waste, even though the price per ounce is usually higher. What's worth watching on the shelf isn't necessarily all canned fruit disappearing. Changes often appear first among the budget options. Store brands are restocked more slowly. No added sugar varieties become less available, while the remaining versions cost more. Food only has value when someone is actually willing to eat it. On days when the body refuses almost everything else, a can of soft peaches may be worth more than a shelf full of dry ingredients. 9. Canned mixed vegetables. One can in place of an entire cutting board of vegetables. Try counting how many steps one serving of fresh vegetables requires. You have to buy them while they're still fresh enough. Find room in the refrigerator. Wash them, peel them, cut off the stems, slice them into bite-sized pieces. Only then can you start cooking. If you don't use them in time, some may soften, change color, and eventually end up in the trash. A can of mixed vegetables has already done almost all of that work before you open the lid. Inside, there may be carrots, peas, corn, green beans, and sometimes potatoes. They have already been cleaned, cut into relatively uniform sizes, and heat processed, so they only need to be warmed up or added directly to a dish. No cutting board, no knife, no peels, stems, or damaged parts to cut away. Picture someone coming home after a long day. Their hands are tired and their back hurts. Standing over the sink and holding a knife to chop vegetables is no longer a small task. It can become the reason vegetables are left out of dinner entirely. In that situation, a can of mixed vegetables isn't a fancy solution. It is simply the shortest path to adding several kinds of vegetables to a meal without starting from scratch. One can be added to soup, fried rice, or stew. It can also become a quick vegetable filling for pot pie or shepherd's pie. Because the vegetables are already cooked, they only need to be added near the end to warm through, instead of being cooked too long and becoming even softer. Mixed vegetables also help a small amount of meat go further. A little meat may not be enough on its own, but when combined with vegetables, rice, potatoes, or sauce, it can create a larger, more filling dish. Mixed vegetables don't replace protein. They help what you already have go further. Depending on the ingredients, one may also provide fiber along with some vitamins and minerals. The nutritional value isn't exactly the same as fresh vegetables, but it helps keep a meal from becoming nothing more than starch, meat, and sauce. This product is especially useful for older adults, people with arthritis, hand pain, or limited mobility. When holding a knife, peeling vegetables, or standing for a long time at the sink becomes difficult, the steps already taken care of inside the can don't just save time. They help that person continue preparing a meal with vegetables on their own. By August, this advantage becomes even clearer. Fresh vegetables need refrigerator space and may lose quality more quickly in hot weather. According to the assessment, the USDA forecasts that fresh vegetable prices in the US will rise by about 6–8% in 2026. A can of mixed vegetables can't replace the texture of fresh vegetables, but it helps families keep several kinds of vegetables on hand without racing against the heat, freshness, or preparation time. Sodium is something to check. Prioritize cans labeled low sodium, reduced sodium, or no salt added if your family needs to limit salt. When enough clean water is available, you can drain and quickly rinse the vegetables. If water is limited, buying a lower sodium version from the start is more practical. If you add the vegetables to soup or stew, the liquid in the can can sometimes be used, but check the sodium content first. For fried rice, pot pie, or shepherd's pie, draining them usually gives a better texture. If you don't use everything after opening the can, transfer the rest to an airtight container and keep it refrigerated. In a situation without refrigeration, a small can or a size you can finish in one sitting will be more practical than a large can. On the shelf, don't just look to see whether the canned vegetable section is empty. Pay attention to smaller changes. Store-brand cans being restocked more slowly, fewer family-size options, or the unit price rising as smaller cans gradually replace larger ones. Fresh vegetables still have an advantage in texture and variety, but fresh vegetables are only useful when you have the time, water, refrigerated space, and enough energy to prepare them before they spoil. The real value of mixed vegetables isn't just what's inside the can, it is also all the work you don't have to do. 8. Full-fat coconut milk. The fat that food storage often overlooks. How much rice, pasta, and beans are in your food supply? Now ask a question fewer people think about. How much fat does it contain? A food supply can contain enough calories for weeks and still create meals that are dry, thin, and unsatisfying. People may eat a large serving, but still feel like looking for something else a short time later. Fat isn't the only thing that determines fullness. Protein, fiber, and the total amount of food all matter. But fat helps flavors linger longer, makes textures fuller, and makes a simple meal feel more complete. That is the gap full-fat coconut milk can fill. When used to make coconut rice, it makes every grain more fragrant, softer, and mildly rich. In curry or lentil dal, the fat is distributed throughout the sauce, helping mellow the spices and making ordinary ingredients like beans, vegetables, or rice more satisfying. It can also provide a base for noodles with coconut sauce or be used in rice pudding. The value of coconut milk doesn't come from one person having to use the entire can. Because the fat is distributed throughout the whole dish, a moderate amount can improve an entire pot of rice or curry. If the goal is calories and texture, choose the kind labeled full-fat coconut milk. Light versions and coconut beverages sold in cartons are usually much thinner, so they don't do the same job in cooking. The full-fat kind also contains a lot of saturated fat, so its value comes from using a reasonable amount to improve the entire dish, not turning the whole can into one serving for one person. By August, what matters isn't just the price of a can of coconut milk. Most of the supply depends on tropical regions and international shipping chains. If a corn crop fails, farmers can plant again the following season. But a new coconut tree needs several years before it reaches stable production. That means the effects of weather, aging trees, or rising demand in producing countries cannot be offset in just a few months. It doesn't prove that coconut milk will disappear, but it explains why supply may respond more slowly than short-season crops. Instead of waiting for the shelf to go empty, watch whether low-priced, full-fat versions are being restocked consistently and whether the price gap with premium versions is widening. Coconut milk must be refrigerated after opening, so a large can only saves money when the family has a plan to use the rest. Coconut milk doesn't just make a meal taste better. It adds the thing that makes the body feel like the meal is truly complete. 7. Canned tomatoes. The glue that holds the entire pantry together. Take tomatoes out of the kitchen for 1 week. Pasta loses its sauce. Chili loses its base. The remaining vegetables lose their shortest path to becoming dinner. You still have ingredients, but they're harder to connect into a complete recipe. That is the real role of canned tomatoes. They provide moisture, acidity, color, and the base that helps many separate ingredients work together. Tomatoes turn dry pasta into pasta with sauce. They turn beans and spices into chili. They help vegetables, broth, and a little leftover meat become a structured dish. Tomato paste concentrates that work. Even a small amount makes the flavor deeper. Each form of canned tomato has its own job. Whole peeled tomatoes are flexible because they can be left whole, chopped, or crushed. Diced tomatoes work well when a dish needs distinct texture. Crushed tomatoes create a quick sauce base. Tomato paste provides intense flavor in a small amount. Instead of stocking too much of one kind, combining several different forms opens up more recipes and helps you adjust a dish based on what you have left. According to the USDA data you provided, fresh tomato prices in the US were 19.5% higher in June 2026 than they were during the same period the year before. That doesn't mean canned tomatoes will rise by the same percentage, but it shows that this foundational ingredient is not immune to food price pressure. A large share of America's processing tomato supply is concentrated in California. When drought, irrigation water, labor, or processing costs put pressure on this key growing region, the effects can spread across many products. As August 2026 approaches, don't just look to see whether the tomato section is still full. Watch store-brand crushed tomatoes, low-priced tomato paste, and no salt-added versions, the options that help make cooking the most affordable. Removing tomatoes doesn't just take one can of food out of the pantry. It makes dozens of other ingredients harder to turn into a real meal. 6. Canned beans. The money-saving decision millions of families make at the same time. A family looks at its grocery bill and decides to buy less meat this week. They aren't panic buying. They're just trying to keep their budget from getting out of control. One meat-based meal is replaced with beans, then another meal. The decision is so small that almost no one notices. But when millions of families make the same choice, demand changes very quickly. That is what makes canned beans worth watching. They sit right at the intersection of low cost, nutrition, and convenience. Beans provide plant-based protein, fiber, iron, and complex carbohydrates. They give meals more substance, help people feel full longer, and reduce dependence on increasingly expensive portions of meat. Unlike dry beans, canned beans don't need to be soaked overnight or cooked for hours. Just open, drain, and add them to a meal. That convenience allows consumers to change their habits immediately, instead of having to learn a new cooking process. A can of black beans can go into tacos. Kidney beans work well in chili. Chickpeas can become hummus, salad, or curry. Cannellini beans work well in Italian-style dishes, while pinto beans are easy to combine with rice and simple seasonings. This variety matters. If you only buy one kind, the flavors quickly become repetitive. But by rotating black beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, pinto beans, and white beans, the same budget can still create many different kinds of meals. On the shelf, store-brand options and multi-packs often attract families looking to lower the unit price. As meat prices continue to put pressure on budgets, these are also products that many people may switch to at the same time. Beans don't have to disappear from the shelf to become priceless. As long as meat continues to move beyond the budgets of many families, their role has already changed completely. 5. Canned tuna protein for meals when there is no time. Frozen meat needs to be thawed. Raw meat needs to be cut, seasoned, cooked, and cleaned up afterward. Tuna only requires a can opener. That is why this familiar product still holds a special place in the pantry. It doesn't require planning the night before. No hot skillet, no waiting for the oven. When you need protein right away, tuna is ready. Open the can, drain it, mix it with a little mayonnaise, mustard, or seasoning. Within minutes, it can become a sandwich filling, the protein for a salad, or lunch for one person. If you need a quicker dinner, tuna can be mixed into pasta, a casserole, or rice. It also works well in a grain bowl, where you only need to add vegetables, sauce, and whatever starch you already have. A small can creates just the right portion without having to cook a large piece of meat and then deal with the leftovers. Familiarity is also an advantage. Tuna doesn't need to convince most shoppers that it is something they can eat. They already know the flavor, know how to mix it, and know which dishes work for their family. On a busy day, that familiarity removes one more decision. You can choose tuna packed in water if you want a milder flavor or more control over the amount of fat. Tuna packed in oil has a richer texture and may feel more filling. The best choice depends on the dish and your family's needs. As long as the can remains intact, tuna can be stored in the pantry for a long time, according to the directions on the package. But it should still be rotated with eggs, beans, chicken, salmon, or other protein sources instead of becoming an everyday food. Tuna isn't the most surprising item on this list, but a food supply without it would be missing one of the shortest paths from a can to a protein-rich meal. 4. Canned chicken protein. The whole family can easily recognize when everything is changing. A meal that still tastes familiar can create a sense of stability. That is the unique value of canned chicken. It provides complete protein, requires no thawing, and can go directly into many dishes the family already knows. But its greatest advantage isn't just convenience. It is the ability to blend in without making the meal feel unfamiliar. Mixed with mayonnaise and seasoning, it becomes chicken salad. Added to tortillas, beans, or cheese, it can become tacos or quesadillas. Combined with pasta, a casserole, rice, or vegetables, even a small can add protein to the meal and help feed more people. Its neutral flavor makes chicken easier for young children, picky eaters, or people who don't like canned fish to accept. It doesn't force the whole family to adjust to a new flavor. at a time when they already have too many other changes to face. Canned chicken isn't exactly the same as freshly cooked chicken. But when the freezer can't be trusted, or fresh meat becomes inconvenient, it still helps simple ingredients look and feel like a normal dinner. Rice and beans keep a family from going hungry. A can of chicken can help turn them into a dinner everyone still recognizes. 3. Canned sardines. The biggest gap between appearance and true value. They don't look good in pictures. The smell isn't subtle either. And many people have decided they don't like sardines before they even know what's inside the can. Set that prejudice aside for a moment. Sardines provide complete protein, omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin B12, selenium, and if you eat the soft bones, they also provide calcium. Very few compact foods combine that much value in a single can. Sardines can be eaten immediately or served with toast, rice, or pasta. The kind packed in oil provides additional fat and calories. The oil can also be used in the meal instead of automatically being poured out. People who aren't used to them can start with sardines in tomato sauce or mustard. A little lemon, pepper, or mustard helps balance the fishy flavor and makes them easier to eat. Sardines aren't for everyone, but their appearance and strong smell shouldn't hide their nutritional value. People who have lived through times of scarcity often understand that dependable food isn't always the most attractive food. Sardines don't need to look appealing to become priceless. When fresh meat is too expensive and the kitchen isn't functioning normally, that overlooked little can still keep doing exactly what it is supposed to do. I'm keeping the pacing tight, like the previous 2 sections. Each section is about 250-280 words, without repeating the earlier patterns. 2. Canned chili. A meal that has already been assembled. It's 7 p.m. Work took up the entire day. The news left everyone exhausted. There is still food in the pantry, but no one has enough energy left to start dinner from scratch. This is when canned chili shows its true value. Unlike an ingredient that requires several additional steps, chili already contains most of the structure of a meal. Protein, beans, tomatoes, fat, fiber, and seasoning. You only need to open the can and heat it up. If circumstances require it, many kinds can also be eaten straight from the can. Chili can be eaten on its own, but its value increases when combined with simple foods. Poured over rice or potatoes, one can create more servings. Add it to pasta, tortillas, or nachos, and it becomes a different meal without requiring you to restart the entire cooking process. The options are also fairly varied. There is beef, turkey, and meatless chili to suit different tastes and budgets. According to the USDA, beef and veal prices are forecast to rise by about 10.7% in 2026. That makes a product that already combines meat, beans, and sauce more noteworthy, especially as a serving of fresh beef takes up an increasingly large share of the budget. Chili solves 3 problems at once: no time, no energy left, and the need for a hot, filling meal. Chili doesn't just help you start cooking faster. It eliminates nearly the entire process of getting started. 1. Canned soup. When the most valuable thing is an option that is still manageable. A man works 2 shifts every day while caring for his mother as she recovers from surgery. There is rice, pasta, beans, and vegetables in the kitchen. In theory, he has enough food to cook many meals. But every evening after he gets home, the only thing he still has enough energy to prepare is a hot can of soup. The problem isn't that he lacks ingredients. He lacks the energy to turn them into dinner. That is why soup takes the #1 spot. A can of soup can combine water, sodium, vegetables, starch, and sometimes protein in a single product. Just open the lid and heat it up. When the stove can't be used, some kinds can still be eaten directly if necessary. Soup works well on days when someone is sick, caring for a loved one, overworked, or when the budget is nearly gone at the end of the month. Young children and many older adults also often find a soft, warm bowl of soup easier to eat than dry or heavy foods. If you need to stretch the servings, you can add rice, pasta, or vegetables. But soup's greatest value isn't the maximum number of calories. It lies in the fact that it remains manageable when the person eating it no longer has enough energy to complete multiple steps. The warmth of soup also brings back something very familiar: the feeling of being cared for. A hot bowl of soup doesn't just ease hunger. It can make a difficult day feel a little more bearable. A pantry full of ingredients doesn't help much if you no longer have the energy to turn them into dinner. But a can of soup only requires you to open the lid. That is when the few dollars on the label no longer reflect the true value of what is inside. Go back to the canned food aisle from the beginning of the story. The cans are still lined up neatly, and there is no sign that they are about to become more important than the few dollars printed on their labels. But the value of food isn't determined only at the supermarket. It is determined on the night you no longer have the energy to cook, the day the refrigerator stops working, or the week when fresh meat moves beyond what remains of the budget. A good food supply doesn't need to be very large. It only needs enough vegetables, fruit, fat, protein, and a few meals that can be opened and eaten right away. Preparing doesn't mean clearing the shelves out of fear. It means understanding what your family actually eats, buying a reasonable amount extra, and rotating it regularly. Of the 12 items we just covered, which one is missing from your family's pantry? Share it in the comments.